Bruh, you hear about Bitcoin? Bitcoin? Man, I heard that's a Ponzi scheme. What's a Ponzi scheme? Uh, man, like a Ponzi scheme. What's going on, guys? I'm Sayer. This is Integrating Bitcoin. I teach you things about money that you might not know and how that's related to Bitcoin. So let me tell you what a Ponzi scheme actually is. It's a type of financial fraud where there's actually no product or service involved. They're not actually producing any value in the economy. So somebody gets a round of initial investors and essentially tricks them into giving him some money. And then we'll say, hey, I can like double your money super quick. Or, some pitch to get them excited and get investors to put their money into this idea. Well, that's the first level of the investors. And then the same person will go out and get another level of investors, which then pay money into this system. And that goes towards paying the first level investors as well. So then they immediately are like, whoa, I just made a bunch of money. And now he has testimonials from people and they're going to be telling their friends. And then they get another round. And then so it's essentially like this bigger group of investors. The most recent ones are always paying money into the system, and then that's feeding everyone else above them. All right, so here's a little diagram that shows how it works. It all funnels up to the organizer. Notice the arrows are pointing up. The first early investors are the ones that are originally convinced, and then the mid-investor round comes to where all the money that they put in ends up paying the early investors and the organizer, and so on and so forth. Then the late investors fund the mid-investors and the early investors and the organizer. And essentially this all just falls apart once people start taking their money out and they realize it's just a scheme. There's actually no real investment. There's no real product being produced or service provided that's actually generating real economic value. And so the whole thing just collapses. I wanted to explain that because Bitcoin does get called a Ponzi scheme quite often. And I think it's, by people that maybe don't even understand what a Ponzi scheme is to begin with, but they also don't understand what Bitcoin is either. And I definitely encourage skepticism. It's very good to be skeptical about something and understand what you're investing in. But I would also encourage you to not just parrot what other people say without doing your own research and truly understanding it for yourself. Because if you do your own research and find that Bitcoin is a Ponzi scheme, to your perspective, then that's great. Like if that's your perspective, but at least it's your own perspective. But check this out. Here's another thing that you see quite a bit in the Bitcoin community actually is the comparison of the US dollar being a Ponzi scheme. And I wouldn't say that's exactly accurate, but it does make you ponder the properties of our US dollar versus Bitcoin. Although the US dollar does have some similar properties that are the same as a Ponzi scheme, I wouldn't say that it is one. But again, it's just like a thought-provoking exercise here. Because if we look at the US dollar, there's trillions and trillions of US dollars. There's an unlimited supply. There's literally no cap to the amount of US dollars that can exist. It's not backed by anything. It used to be backed by gold, but in 1971, President Nixon completely severed that connection. So US dollars are not redeemable for anything. They're just paper. And it is centrally controlled, just like the Ponzi scheme, where the original creator of it centrally controls the whole system and is the only one that truly really knows what's going on with the whole system. But if you relate that to Bitcoin, where there's an actual supply cap, there can only be 21 million. It is backed by energy, so you have to expend real world energy in order to write to the ledger, but anybody can do that, and no one can control it. It's like a commodity in cyberspace. So yeah, the US dollar is not a Ponzi scheme, but it definitely has properties that are much closer to a Ponzi scheme than Bitcoin does. And if you take a little time to do some research, you can see that for yourself too. Go ahead and like this video if you got something good out of it, and I'll see you tomorrow. Peace, brah.